Some of the mistakes I made in my 11 years on the merry-go-round of misery and hell trying to get off booze. Um, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't get a sponsor and I didn't tell anybody except my wife. And I think it's because subconsciously I wasn't ready to quit. I was just laying low. I was just getting the spotlight off of me because, something happened, big fight or something at work or whatever, right? Um, and so I didn't want the accountability, right? I didn't want people asking me how I was doing with the staying sober thing. So I didn't tell anybody. So then when I fell off the wagon and drank again, I wasn't letting people down, right? Because shame, guilt, and boredom are three, one-way trips back to the bottle, and uh, a super fast way to go back to the bottle, a double fast pass is disappointment, right? When people are disappointed in you, when you let them down or you don't meet the expectation that was said or understood to be met, like you feel like a failure. And we hate failure. We hate losing more than we love to win. And we love to win at everything, right? We love to win at anything you can put in front of us. And so losing is awful. And disappointment is losing is failure and disappointment is failure. And those feelings will drive you on a double fast pass back to the bottle faster than shame, guilt, and boredom will. So another mistake that I made was putting myself at risk of shame, guilt, and disappointment because I would try to fill up my white space with all kinds of stuff to do so that I wouldn't be thinking about drinking all the time. And I would set unrealistic expectations for myself, as we all do, because we always want to achieve the highest of the high plus the next level, right? New high score type people. So, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to hot yoga 7 days a week and I'm going to volunteer and do this and I'm going to help with that and I'm going to do this. And then what happens is life starts to happen, right? Because your life doesn't change when you get sober. You just deal with it differently, but life's still there and it still sucks at times. So life gets in the way and you don't make it to yoga 7 times a week. You only make it 3 times. You have to cancel that Thursday night commitment because you're stuck at work or whatever. And so you start feeling like a failure yourself because I didn't make it to yoga 7 days a week like I wanted to. And then it's like now you're in that shame and guilt, like you're feeling bad that you didn't even meet your own expectations when really your own expectations were unrealistic to begin with. But throw that out for a second and just you set these expectations, you didn't make it, and now you feel bad. So you're like, oh, screw it, might as well drink, right? Or that commitment that you had to pull back on because you overbooked yourself, you let somebody down and now they're upset with you, which is disappointment, failure, you know, double fast pass back, right? And so when I finally got through that first year sober, I I had two mantras, right? And the first one was aim small, miss small. And I love that quote from The Patriot with Mel Gibson when he's telling his kids right before they shoot at the British officers. Remember what I told you about shooting, boys? And they're like, aim small, miss small. And I feel like when you're trying to get sober, you do the same thing. Is just aim small, miss small. Just pick two things that you can do every day that keep you sober and just do them religiously. There's a lot of examples. Like one of my buddies, his thing was to go to a meeting and cook himself a nice dinner. And that took up a lot of time because he'd look up a recipe. Then he'd drive 25 minutes to the meeting. He'd talk to people in the parking lot for a little bit. The meeting lasts an hour, chat a little bit after. Then he'd drive home and stop at the grocery store, pick out the ingredients for his meal, go home. By the time he unpacked everything, sliced up all his garlic, sauteed his peppers, cooked his meal, and then actually forced himself to sit down and eat it instead of eating it in the kitchen like we all probably do, because we move so fast we don't even sit down to freaking eat, right? It's like I spent an hour slicing onions and peppers and making this amazing dinner, and then I eat it in 5 minutes standing in the kitchen, you know? Like what was the point of that, right? So you got all this time now in sobriety. You don't have to be in a rush all the time. Like you can sit down and eat your food that you made and like enjoy it. Turn the TV off, sit in silence, or put on some nice music or something. Whatever. Leave it on Fox News if you want. Just sit down and eat your damn food, man. Slow down. Stop getting out of the car so fast. You know, put it in, wait till the car's fully stopped. I know you're all guilty of this. Putting it in park before the cars even stop moving. The whole thing goes clunk clunk. You've all done it. Like, stop the car, put it in park, take your keys out, put them in your pocket, get your phone, get your wallet, make sure you're all set, grab your backpack, and then step out of the car, right? Instead of what we always do, which is pull in, jam it in park, keys, wallet, phone, boom, out the car, backpack gets caught on the stick shifter, water bottle flies out the side, you drop your keys, you're like just a whirlwind, and there's no reason for it. Like there's no reason for you to rush, right? Slow it down. Same thing in sobriety. Just slow it down. Just take your time, man. Pick out some nice ingredients, fresh veggies, whatever. Take time, get into it. Slicing the peppers and the onions and the garlic, like make a thing of it, right? And those two things kept him sober. Just going to a meeting and cooking dinner, right? It not only took up a lot of time, it gave him something to do. And that was very realistic for him to be able to do. It was very realistic for him to be able to make it to an hour meeting. They have them from 6 a.m. till freaking 9 p.m. in person. They're 24 hours online. So getting to a meeting was easy and making dinner was easy. Another guy I met was a Marine. His two things were be there every day when his boys get off the bus and cook dinner and sit down and eat with them, right? That was his two things. And that those two things kept him sober because in order to be there for the kids to be off the bus and to cook dinner and have dinner with his kids, he needed to be sober. And so, hey, whatever floats your boat, dude. My thing was sweet tarts, right? Go to a meeting, eat sweet tarts. So I kept sweet tarts everywhere, man. For some reason, my buddy Charles has a good way of explaining this. Like you have to, especially early on, you have to identify your triggers. You know, I know shame, guilt, boredom, disappointment, failure. Those are major ones, right? You have to identify the trigger and then you have to interrupt or short circuit the time, the action, the impulse between that trigger and you getting a drink. Whatever your normal routine is. Like trigger happens, I drive to Miller's, get a 12 pack of Bud Light Platinum, then I cruise by ABC, walk in with some cash back, I get XYZ, stash it in my garage, stash it in the pantry. You gotta you gotta interrupt the trigger to the impulse to move towards booze, right? And for me, that interruption was sweet tarts. I would just cram some sweet tarts in my mouth, bite into them, and as the sugar went down my throat and into my mouth, it would just interrupt that impulse. And then I could sit with it, the discomfort, and the feeling would pass. And everybody's got their own version of how they do that. Maybe it's trigger happens, I recognize it, I grab my dog and I take a walk. Trigger happens, I recognize it, I eat some sweet tarts. Like trigger happens, I recognize it, I go mow the yard. Like whatever is your thing, just find something to interrupt and short circuit that trigger to impulse to move towards boost and aim small, miss small. And the last thing I had was I call it my mantra. If keeping it simple when you're sober is just the way to do it, man. Like I said, pick two things and aim small, miss small, and then wake. My quote is wake up, do good shit, go to bed. Right. And if you just live by that motto, then you'll be fine because alcohol is not good shit. So I don't do that, right? Because I wake up, do good shit, and go to bed every day. And alcohol is not good shit. Therefore, I don't do it. So as long as I wake up, do good shit, go to bed, I don't live in fear anymore. Alcohol doesn't have that grip on me anymore, right? Like I don't flinch when people call my name in the hallway because I'm scared they want to talk to me about last night or last weekend or whatever, right? I don't wake up in fear on the couch anymore, wondering how I got there and where's my wife. Like it's a genuine life. So as long as I wake up, do good shit and go to bed, then everything I do is above board. I don't have to lie about anything. I don't have to hide anything. I don't have to sneak around, right? But you got to come up with whatever works for you, whatever your system is. These are just ideas to get you going. And, they're good ones. There's all kinds of stuff you can do to interrupt and short circuit that thing. Come up with your own motto and keep it simple. Like, you don't have to use aim small, miss small or wake up, do good shit, go to bed. Just come up with something for you. Use that for now. Good luck.